We all know that there's a super focus on Israel around the world. Newspapers, television, news, always are focused on Israel. This tiny little country, thousands of miles away, speaking a funny language, eating funny food, people dressing in a funny way, and yet the whole Western world certainly is super focused on this tiny little country. The problem is that much of the information we get about Israel comes through the media. Often this lens of the media is slanted, gives information that doesn't show the whole picture. It's important that there's a few messages that we're able to get across that we don't often hear in the media about Israel. The first message is to show that Israel has tried time and time again to try to have peace with its neighbors. In 1948, when Israel was created, David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, extended his hand to his Arab neighbors, saying they were going to create the state of Israel that wanted to live in peace and cooperation with its Arab neighbors. We know that the response to David Ben-Gurion's outstretched hand was war. Israel was immediately attacked by all of its surrounding Arab nations. In 1967, as Arab nations amassed troops on the borders of Israel, at the end of the Six-Day War, when Israel had conquered the territories of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, Israel offered to make a peace treaty with the surrounding Arab countries. The response was the famous three no's: no peace, no negotiations, and no recognition. There was no talks that the Arab countries would have with Israel. Years went on and Israel still tried to make peace with its Arab neighbors. Later on, in the late 1970s, Israel did make peace with its neighbor Egypt, a country that had fought with many bitter wars, but Israel was able to make peace with brave Arab leaders. Years later, Israel was also able to make peace with Jordan, its neighbor on the east. Again, brave Arab leaders that were willing to stand up, again, amongst much pressure, to make peace with Israel. When it comes to the Palestinians, Israel has also had its hands outstretched for peace. In the last 10 to 15 years, Israel has had many attempts to make peace with the Palestinians. The Oslo Accords were the first main attempts. In the Oslo Accords, Israel agreed to give land to the Palestinians, and by the end of the Oslo process, by right up to the year 2000, 97% of Palestinians lived under Palestinian control. That meant on a daily basis, when Palestinians went out on the streets, they did not have to see an Israeli soldier. They controlled their own daily activities. Again, at the end of this process, at Camp David, Israel offered the Palestinians their own state. They offered to dismantle settlements. They offered to give the Palestinians control of many parts of Jerusalem. They offered to allow the Palestinians, many refugees, to come back to this newly formed Palestinian state. Israel was willing to negotiate. Israel was willing to help create a Palestinian state. Israel wanted to move forth for peace. But we all know that once again, their Arab partner, at this point Yasser Arafat, walked away from the negotiations. He not only said no to Israel's offer, but he didn't even offer a counteroffer. We see time and time again, Israel has had his hand outstretched for peace, but unfortunately, in most instances, its Arab partner has not been able to reciprocate. It's important that we're able to get this message across, that Israel wants peace, because often Israel is seen as a warmonger. Often Israel is seen as the party that's causing this conflict to move forward in a negative way. But really the opposite is true. Israel has tried time and time again to have peace with its neighbors.